Hello and welcome to another Beam Report YouTube episode. We are now in the middle of May. A couple of college graduations taking place this upcoming weekend and last weekend. We have a lot of professional sports here to talk about. And first off, we're going to talk about what we've always been starting off with for the last couple of months now, is the PWHL. And what we're first going to talk about is the first series that we are going to... We're only going to look at one game, but the first series that concluded was the series between the second-seeded Boston Fleet and the third-seeded Ottawa Charge. And last we left off in that series, Boston had taken Game 1 by a score of 2-1. Ottawa had taken Game 2 by a score of 3-1. And then Ottawa had also taken Game 3 by a score of 2-1. And then in a double overtime thriller, Ottawa was victorious over Boston by a score of 4-3. Michaela Cava scored the overtime game winner. Again, in second overtime, that game saw an early score by Sarah Wisniewicz in the first period, and then saw 5 goals scored in the second period. 3 by Boston and 2 by Ottawa, but it was Ottawa in the end winning that one off of, again, Michaela Cava's overtime goal. Ottawa winning that series, advancing to the Walter Cup Championship. They face off against the winner of this series, Montreal Victoire against the Minnesota Frost. Last we saw that series was tied at 2 apiece. Minnesota took Game 1 and Game 4. Montreal took Games 2 and 3, leading us to a end of the line Game 5. So let's take a look at that one right now and see who of these two teams is advancing to the Walter Cup Championship. Game 5 here in Montreal is the Victoire hosting the Frost. They're going to win the face-off here, but Minnesota, they're going to try and get something going here halfway through the first period. Puck's at the top of the key, and that slap shot's going to get in. Puck is right in front of the net, and Henri Desbiens keeps that one in. We see the replay here almost going over that line there, but keeping it in. 7 minutes left, face-off, and this one's going to go in. A shot right off the pass, right out of the face-off. We're going to see here Marie-Philippe Poulin wins the face-off. It goes right back to Catherine Dubois, and she puts it in. We see better one more time. Poulin puts it back. Dubois instantly rips a shot, and it's just past the goalkeeper. Victoire up 1-0 here. Clock ticking down on the first, and Minnesota trying to get something in, and it's a chaos in front of the net. Pucks go nowhere. Players are diving, but no goal. Time expires here. 1-0 Montreal lead here as we head into the second. Minnesota misses a chance there. Almost gets it. That puck's just going to get out of there. But once again, Henri Desbiens with a beautiful save in net. We're going to see the replay right here. She's on her side, legs in the air, and that puck finds its way. We see again, puck finds its way into her glove. An incredible save by Desbiens there. But Minnesota now trying to get something going, and they find one into the back of the net. Samantha Coogan gets it off the assist from Abby Hustler. We're going to see the replay one more time. Hustler puts it in, and Coogan just gets a nice tap, gets it back to the side of Desbiens. A tied game here, 1-1. We see here just a quick replay, a beautiful save by Maddie Rooney. Gets that one out of there. We're now in the third period. Montreal trying to get up the lead here. They're on the power play. Puck's bouncing around. Puck finds its way to Ambrose, who puts it to Poulin, who puts it into the back of the net from the side angle. Very small angle to put that one in there, but we see here just finds its way up above Maddie Rooney and puts it into the back of the net. Poulin had that game-winning goal in overtime a couple games ago. Wins it here now as time's expiring. Again, chaos here as the clock is going down. No one in net for Minnesota. They're just trying to get anything on net. Puck's bouncing over here, and we see Montreal covers that puck up as the time expires. They win this Game 5 here. They advance to the Walter Cup Playoff Championship game here. First time in team history as they're celebrating there with the Montreal crowd. Great game here as the Victoire take Game 5. So as you can see, a very exciting game coming down to almost to the very end. Montreal winning that one by a score of 2-1. They win the series by a score of 3-2 in that Game 5 matchup. Marie-Philippe Poulin, we talked about her last week when she scored the game winner in triple overtime. She's the hero again for this one with her second playoff goal. She also put an assist, and she scored that third period goal to put Montreal up by a score of 2-1. Henri Desbiens almost perfect in net, but still, beautiful game for her. 26 shots on goal and 25 saves for her. On the other end, it was Maddie Rooney, who allowed 2 goals to slip by, 17 shots and 15 saves for her. And it was Samantha Coogan who put in the 1 goal for the Frost. Montreal, they advance to their first ever Walter Cup finals. And when we've talked about it, they face the Ottawa Charge, the 4 seed making it out. So it'll be a 1 seed versus a 4 seed here in the championship game. Montreal Victoire, Ottawa Charge. Very exciting stuff here. Always exciting stuff when we get to the championship time of any sport. So game 1, Montreal will be hosting. Game 1 taking place tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Game 2, still in Montreal. That'll be played at 2 o'clock on Saturday. Then game 3 and 4, well, 4 is if necessary. Game 3 will be heading over to Ottawa. That'll be played at 6 o'clock next Monday. And then the if necessary game 4 will be next Wednesday in Ottawa. And then, again, the other if necessary, Montreal would host the game 5 if the series needs to get there. But the 3 that we have right now, Montreal will host the first 2, and Ottawa will host the next one. And then that brings us to our map here, and we're going to talk about something in a second. But as you can see, all the teams kind of placed out here on our map, and Montreal and Ottawa, they're like neighboring cities in the country of Canada. You know, although neighboring cities, Montreal, though, does reside in the province of Quebec, and Ottawa is the easternmost city of Ontario. So neighboring provinces, neighboring cities, but not a far drive between these two for their matchup here in the championship. But this brings us now to our map here. So these are the current 8 teams we have across the country. Of course, we have in the West Coast, Vancouver Golden Knights and Seattle Torrent, then the Minnesota Frost up there in St. Paul, and then the 3 more Canadian teams, the Toronto Scepters, Ottawa Charge, and Montreal Victoire, and then our remaining 2 teams, the New York Sirens and the Boston Fleet. So currently 8 teams, and earlier in the season, expansion has been already announced for coming up for next season, and it will be 11 teams in the PWHL next year, and the first one to be announced was in Detroit. So, again, Detroit and the other 2 teams we're going to talk about in a second have not received a name yet, but the PWHL team residing in Detroit was the first expansion team announced, and then 2 more were announced just today. Hamilton, Ontario, and Las Vegas, Nevada. So those are the 2 new teams that will be joining the PWHL. Joining Detroit, it brings it along to now 11 teams in the PWHL. And then per their press release on their website, this is a quote from them. The PWHL's expansion to Hamilton and Las Vegas recognize 2 distinct markets and opportunities for the league. Hamilton boasts one of the largest and most concentrated areas in the world for girls' professional hockey participation, with a community that has rallied for a professional hockey team of their own for generations, while Las Vegas is North America's entertainment mecca and home to a community that has proudly adopted and embraced hockey and women's sports. Of course, Vegas has very, very proudly adopted the Las Vegas Aces WNBA team, and they have become a powerhouse in the WNBA, winning multiple championships. And of course, they mentioned that they have adopted hockey too, and that was in the form of, within the last 10 years, the Vegas Golden Knights were one of the expansion teams, and then Vegas loves them as well. So Vegas, I think, is a great location for another hockey team. I think that yes, it's more of a tourist area, but at the same time, everyone's going to go, people are going to go to games out there. So I think Vegas is a great location for that. And then as for Hamilton, Canada loves its hockey. It doesn't matter where it is. Canada's always going to get behind some hockey. And we've seen the turnout for the other Canadian teams in Vancouver, Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, that Hamilton will fit right in and just be another one of these teams that just gets a great support system from its local crowd. So now we see on the map here, we've got kind of a belt of teams up there along the northern southern border of America and Canada. But we see Vegas down there by itself. Right now, it's the farthest team from anywhere else. but then that bell of Detroit, Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal fitting right there in the center of the league. So we see them highlighted right there. There's Detroit and Hamilton together, and then of course Las Vegas over there, down in Nevada by itself. But so 11 teams now coming up for next season in the PWHL. So they've also announced that there will be an expansion team, part of the roster building process for these teams, and how these teams are going to be able to protect their players and which players are going to be available for draft for these 3 new teams. But an announcement on that it will be coming in the next couple of weeks, is what the PWHL has officially said. So once that announcement is announced, we'll talk about that and see how it's going to work, and then eventually which players will be going where in said expansion draft. But exciting news for a sport that's doing very well, and it's always exciting when there's expansion because it just shows that the popularity of the sport is there, and it shows that there's a chance for growth to expand to new markets, and it shows that these new markets, there is a desire, there is a want for these teams in these new markets. So yeah, we'll update you on when these expansion drafts take place and if there's more expansion on the way. But in the meantime, playoffs tomorrow, championship tomorrow between the Ottawa Charge and the Montreal Victoire. Moving along from one set of playoffs to another, the NBA has kept rolling on here with its playoffs, and you see the bottom, we already have one team move on in the Eastern Conference, and that is the Knicks. So the New York Knicks swept the Philadelphia 76ers by a score of 4-0, and it wasn't even close. I mean, there was one game that was quote-unquote close. Knicks won game 1 by 39 points. Knicks won game 2 by 6 points. Game 3 by 14 points. And then game 4 by 30 points. So 3 matchups, 3 games of over double digits, 2 games of 30-plus point leads by the Knicks, and then only 1 single-digit victory for the Knicks. So the Knicks move on to the Eastern Conference semifinals. They will play the winner of the Detroit Pistons and Cleveland Cavaliers. That series is tied up at 2 apiece, so still some time to decide who the Knicks are going to be facing off. But at this point, the Knicks look simply unstoppable. They had their 2 losses in the series to the Hawks, a combined deficit in those 2 games of 2 points. But in the games that they've won, it's just their point differential is completely off the charts. A total point differential in those games of positive 216. So when the Knicks are winning, they've outscored opponents by 216. And in those 8 wins, that's an average of 27 points. So they're defeating opponents by an average margin of 27, which is just utterly ridiculous. And the Knicks have now easily cruised into the Eastern Conference Finals for the 2nd consecutive season. Of course, last year they lost to the Indiana Pacers, and the issue, though, last year was injuries, and let's just see if the Knicks can stay healthy as they hope to make their first NBA Finals since the 1980s. But on to the West Coast, we saw who moved off into the first round last week, and it was the Lakers taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that series did come to an end, but right now we'll on here. Thunder up 3-0, but the series that we're going to take a look at, because a game was yesterday, Minnesota Timberwolves going to San Antonio for Game 5 against San Antonio Spurs. Of course, that series was tied up at 2 apiece. And again, Spurs hosting in that matchup to see who takes the advantage going into a pivotal Game 6. So let's look at that game right now. Game 5 in San Antonio here. Series tied up at 2 games apiece between the Timberwolves and the Spurs. As the Spurs win the tip-off, De'Aaron Fox is going to get things started here with that foul's going to be called and won. Spurs with the 3-point play to start it off, but Julius Randle, mid-range shot in transition. De'Aaron Fox again working. He's going to get a Gobert to fake over the multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year. Fox again, this time he's going to find Wemby in the corner. He's going to pull up from 3 and connect on that one. Wemby here now, he's going to drive, and he just gets an open lane to slam that one home. But now Jaden McDaniels is going to drive, gets it over the Defensive Player of the Year, Victor Wembanyama. Conley with that pump fake, and he gets the basket there. Off the miss three, Keldon Johnson comes in with that big putback dunk. Now it's the Spurs in transition. De'Aaron Fox, he's going to find Stephon Castle, who's going to get the bucket and the foul. Now this time, Ayu Dosunmu, who's going to get one up and in. De'Aaron Fox is too fast for Julius Randle. Wemby puts the arm up, and he gets it and throws it down. This time, Anthony Edwards working in the corner, and he's just going to find his way to get some space, put that shot up, and he's going to connect there for two. But this time, Castle again, working transition. Gobert denies that one. Timberwolves working. Dosunmu, and he puts that one up, working off the turnover. This time, Edwards working, and he's going to get that one up and over off the glass for the two. Edwards again looking to drive, looking to do something, and he puts that one up, gets it over the long reach of Wembanyama. Another two for him. Into the fourth quarter is Castle with the big two-handed dunk. Julius Randle in the corner is going to pump fake, get behind Luke Cornett, and he's going to get that nice up and under for him. Dylan Harper, he's going to drive and throw one down here as the Spurs have an 18-point lead. Three-pointer here by Keldon Johnson is just going to extend that lead as the time's going to expire. Spurs win this one here by 29 points in Game 5. So as you can see, another dominant victory by the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, Victor Wembanyama was ejected. He got a flagrant 2 for an elbow to the throat of Naz Reid during Game 4. As you can see, Wemby back in this one and looked utterly dominant. 27 points for him on 9 of 16 shooting, 17 boards, 5 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 threes to tally on. Keldon Johnson led he was the second highest scorer for them with 21 points on 8 of 11 shooting, had 2 boards, 2 steals, a block, and a 3. For the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards led the scoring with 20 points on 6 of 13 shooting, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, and a 3 of his own. And then Julius Randle was the second leading scorer there with 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 1 assist for him. So the remaining schedule here. Game 6 will be taking place on Friday in Minnesota. If San Antonio wins that, series is over. They move on to the Western Conference semifinals, taking on the Thunder. And if they lose, that series will head back to San Antonio for a Game 7 matchup that would take place on Sunday. Of course, you see the asterisk there. That would be the if necessary. But San Antonio 1 game away from making a Western Conference Finals for the first time in the Victor Wembanyama era. So as you can see there, we talked about the Thunder. They swept the Lakers, and potentially the last that we've seen of LeBron James in year 23. So we don't know. He doesn't even know if he's going to be coming back for another season next year. But if it is the end of the LeBron James era in the NBA, what a career it was. I mean, 22-time All-Star. God, his basketball reference page is so cluttered. There's so much on there. 22-time All-Star, 4-time NBA champion, a scoring champion, an assist champion, 21 All-NBA titles. He was a Rookie of the Year, 4-time MVP, NBA's leading scorer all time. Just what a career it is for LeBron James. If he does end it, it would be, again, his 23rd season. Most games played in the NBA. He would enter next year at age 42. His birthday is the end of the year, December 30th. So we don't know yet if LeBron will suit back up for another season. Of course, the Lakers would love to have LeBron back on the roster for another year, but again, who knows? He's going to take, as he said in his post-game presser, he's going to take some time to think and just talk with his family and just figure out if he's going to continue suiting up next year. But our one game tonight on the schedule, that is the Pistons and the Cavaliers. That one back in Detroit for Game 5. That series, again, tied up at 2 apiece. So pivotal Game 5 here. One of the teams is going to take a one-game advantage going into Game 6. But again, let's just see who's going to win here. Winner of this series faces on the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. But before we move on to the MLB, we have some sad news across the NBA as one active and one former player both passed away yesterday. The first, Brandon Clark. He was found dead in his San Fernando Valley home yesterday around dinner time on Monday, actually. Clark was 29 years old. He was a 7-year NBA veteran. He played his entire career with the Memphis Grizzlies. Over his career, averaged 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist per game. He was a part of the 2019-2020 All-Rookie team, and he was a key contributor of this Memphis Grizzlies team, but it was potentially at the time, it was a potential drug overdose for Clark, and just very sad news from that. Wish the Clark family all the best and the Memphis Grizzlies all the best in this time. And then the second player we talk about here is Jason Collins. Jason Collins was the NBA's first openly gay player to play and be drafted into the NBA. Collins played 13 years in the NBA, drafted in the 2001-2002 season by the New Jersey Nets, played 8 years in New Jersey before bouncing around from Atlanta, Boston, Memphis, Minnesota, and Washington. But a very good career for Collins, and Collins sadly succumbed to a battle with brain cancer. Collins was 47, and we wish his family all the best in this very, very, very difficult time. But moving along now, we look towards the MLB, and we've been covering the baseball standings the last couple of weeks, and some movement atop the American League, and more specifically the American League East. And after the Yankees had a very difficult series with the Milwaukee Brewers last weekend, where they were swept by the Brewers, Yankees dropped into second place in the American League, and again, the American League East. Tampa Bay, they keep on winning. 9-1 in their last 10 games. They're 28-13. Currently hold a 2-game lead over the Yankees. Yankees 27-16, 5-5 in their last 10 games, of course, including that very difficult sweep at the hands of the Brewers, but they currently sit second in the East, and then they still hold a commanding 8-game lead over the next couple of teams. Baltimore Orioles 19-24, Blue Jays 18-24, and the Red Sox 17-24. All three of those teams under 500 in their last 10 games. The American League Central, Cleveland Guardians, they're 23-21. They've gone 5-5 in their last 10. Chicago White Sox, they've seen a bump up in the standings. Winners of their last 3 consecutive games, 20-21. And then tied, 3-way tie for the bottom of the AL Central. Twins, Tigers, and Royals are all 19-23. Royals, though, 6-4 in their last 10 games, have lost their last 2, though. Maybe trying to catch a little bit of a hot streak right now. Twins, winners of their last 3. But AL Central, just not the division that we expected it to be, considering their track record and their expectations coming into the season. Same thing with the AL West. A's, 21-20, they lead the way. They are 4-6 in their last 10. No team in the AL West has had a winning record over their last 10 games. Seattle Mariners, 21-22, they're 5-5 over their last 10. Rangers, 20-22, 4-6 in their last 10. And the Angels and the Astros rounding out the AL West. Both those two teams 16-27. Both those two teams 4-6 in their last 10 games. Astros losers of the last 4. Angels losers of their last 2 games. And one of the players I want to highlight here is American League MVP runner-up from last season, Cal Raleigh, who looks like a complete shell of the player he was last year. 7 home runs on the season so far, but he's hitting 166. Just not known for a high average player. Raleigh, a career average of 222. Did hit 247 last year. Of course, had a 60 home runs, 125 RBIs. That was his 3rd consecutive season of 30-plus home runs. But this season, just nothing going right in the slightest for Raleigh. Did get 2 hits yesterday, but beforehand, hitless in his last 10 games. Again, 2 hits yesterday for him, so maybe starting to turn things around, but just Cal Raleigh, not the player that many expected to see coming off of a great season last year, just not at all what was expected from him. But that's the AL West. Again, we've talked about this before. The AL Central and the AL West is just a wild West. West, but Wild West out there, as none of those teams are doing anything that they're supposed to be doing. But we move on to the National League. Atop the NL and atop the NL East, the Atlanta Braves still reigning supreme there. 29-13, won 7 of their last 10 games. Another team maybe starting to catch a little bit of fire, Philadelphia Phillies. They're 20-22, winners of 7 of their last 10 games, winners of 3 consecutive. There's 20 and 22, and so are the Washington Nationals, who have dropped in the standings, winners of 5 of their last 10 games. And then the Marlins and the Mets, 19 and 23 and 16 and 25, respectively. Just Braves holding a huge division lead over everybody else here. 9 games over the Phillies, 12.5 over the Mets, but the Braves just still mashing the baseball, doing everything that they should be doing here. Then we look for the Cubs in the NL Central, still playing some great baseball. Again, winners of 7 of their last 10, losers of their last 3 games, though, so maybe starting to cool off a little bit, but 27-15 still atop the NL Central. Then it's the Brewers 23 and 16, Cardinals 24 and 17, Pirates 23 and 19, and Reds 22 and 20. Reds on a little bit of a skid here, losers of 8 of their last 10 games. Brewers winners of 8 of their last 10 games, so opposite of the Reds. But at NL Central, close race here. And then the NL West, the Padres are 24 and 17, jumping over the Dodgers 24 and 18, ahead of them by a half a game. Dodgers losers of their last 4 consecutive games, and the Diamondbacks 20 and 21, and then the Giants 18 and 24, and the Rockies 16 and 26. So some interesting things here. Yeah, the Braves, Cubs, and Padres are the current division leaders of their respective conferences, and then the wildcard teams. Dodgers are the 3rd team ranked in the wild card so far, with the Brewers holding the first spot, 23 and 16. Cardinals holding the second spot, 24 and 17, and then the Dodgers half game back, 24 and 18. So interesting in the National League wild card. So Dodgers maybe on a little bit of skid. Shohei Ohtani not playing as poorly as Cal Raleigh's been, but not playing to the caliber that we're used to seeing out of Shohei Ohtani, only hitting .240 this year. 7 home runs, 17 RBIs for him. But yeah, so that's the baseball coverage we have here for today. We're just a quick look at the standings and who's hot, who's not as of late. But anyway, thank you all for listening to another episode. Thank you all for watching another episode of the Bean Report. Me, your host, Christian Bean. And yeah, it's the same thing I've been saying every other week. Go out and enjoy some weather. Hopefully your allergies aren't too bad. And thank you all and have a great day.